I even have a coffee here, so that's fine.
Oh, Colombian coffee
Oh,
or Australian coffee?
Australian. So this is the thing, eh? Australian coffee is so good.
It's good, yeah. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I hear it's really good. I hear it's really good.
It is. It is really good. I
Mm.
mean, I think it's the way you guys prepare the coffee here. In
Yeah.
Colombia, the coffee is quite sweet. I find like there's a lot of milk, so
Yes.
it's never strong
Yes.
enough.
No, no.
But good. I mean, I love Australian
It's
coffee.
it's because of the Italian population in Australia. Italians and Greeks, and I think they really pumped up the quality of coffee, because before then, I think a coffee in Australia would have been pretty basic, like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But it's really taken off, particularly in Melbourne. Melbourne's like the coffee city, and I'm sure it's the same in Sydney now, and Adelaide, and
Yeah,
Wollongong, like everywhere.
100%,
Yeah.
and it's so good. And every time I
Yeah.
go to Colombia, you have no idea how much I miss Australian
Yeah.
coffee. I'm like,
That is too funny. That is too funny.
yeah, I know. Well, Eddie,
Yeah.
how long have you been in Colombia?
Hmm. I've been here since, February last year, so nearly 1 year and a half.
All right.
Nearly 1 year and a half. Yeah.
So full pandemic in Colombia.
The
But wait,
pandemic.
was it the first time
Yeah.
in Colombia? Was it your first time in Colombia? Oh,
No, no, it was my, I've been here twice before, but very, very briefly. So my first trip to Colombia was um, about 4 years ago. I came here for about 3 weeks, and then I came back a couple of months after that on my way back through the USA for another week, because I knew people here and had friends here and everything. So this has been my longest stay in Colombia, my longest stay anywhere outside of Australia. So it's become my second home. Like well, in many ways, it's like it feels like more of my home than Australia. So it's a cool place to be, even during a pandemic, which
that's it.
hasn't been ideal.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So when did you arrive to Colombia? Like in 2020, when?
Uh, Literally 1 month before lockdown. So I arrived with this, dreams of what my year was going to be like everyone else. And I, literally, I think I probably just got out in time. So I got here, I was in Bogota for about a month, and then I went to visit my friend in Cartagena, because he was there for the film festival. He's from Bogota, was working in Mexico City, and then flew down for the film festival, because he's a filmmaker as well. So I met him there, and the plan was 4 or 5 days in Cartagena, and then I'd come back to Bogota. But when we were in Cartagena, that's when all the pandemic really hit Colombia, all the news, and they were like, curfews, we're locking down this, that, and the other. You've got, like, I think there was two days I had to fly home back to Bogota, and me and my friend said, well, we can just stay in Cartagena, because like it's nice weather, and it probably only be a week or two lockdown. It ended up being 6 weeks.
Yes.
So I was in Cartagena for 6 weeks solo, by myself. My friend was in Cartagena as well, in a different part of the city. So we were talking every day on the phone, but we couldn't meet because of the restrictions. So it was a weird start to my Colombian new chapter,
Adventure. Yeah.
but it ended up being another kind of adventure in itself. Like, creatively, I was really inspired, and I really tapped into the Colombian audience, who were all stuck inside on their phones and on Instagram, and my stuff started to really spread in that sort of 3 or 4 months. And then I was doing these Instagram lives, which everyone was doing Instagram lives during the lockdown, but I was doing one every night, and then these people kept coming on, and they became my followers and my kind of crew, my gang. And I look back to it now, and I think it was a really focused and very beautiful 6 months, because there was no anxiety of I should be doing this, I should be going to this event, or I should be doing more touristy things. You're stuck inside, so what can you do?
Yeah.
You can only draw, and so it was perfect for an artist because I could just draw all day and sit in the hammock and listen to listen to Gabriel Garcia Marquez, audiobooks and stuff like that. So I can't complain. It was a pretty nice place to be in lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, Cartagena is really beautiful. And it was
Yeah,
good that it gave you the chance to explore Colombia in a different way, I guess, and connect with people on
yeah,
Instagram.
virtually.
Yeah, virtually.
Yeah.
But how were you planning to stay in Colombia for a long time, or was it like, oh, I'm going for a month and then I leave?
No, my plan was always, I was going to stay for 6 months on the visa, the tourist visa, and then my plan was to extend that, get some work here, or a project, something that would allow me to extend that. So it wasn't like my plans were completely ruined. It was more like, well, I'm stuck in Colombia now,
Definitely.
and I'm happy about that. But it was more like I couldn't explore it in the way, physically I couldn't get on a plane and travel around.
Hmm.
But I think that it was cool because it made me really hungry for, like, because I started researching about the foods of Colombia and the music and the dances and all these cultural things, that when I finally was free, it was like, oh, now I can go to Medellin, now I can go to San Andres, now I can go to these places and actually taste these foods and experience these things that I've been drawing about. So it was
Yes.
kind of like a prequel, a prequel of what was to come.
That's so interesting, though. So you were drawing about
Yeah,
all these things before even you actually
yeah,
tried them. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was all through my followers who were, I would put up a question like, "What are the typical foods of Manizales?" And then everyone would respond, this, and this. And so I was learning all about these dishes and yeah, music and all this kind of stuff. And it was like this beautiful kind of like crash course in Colombian everything in that time. And then obviously once you start exploring it, you're learning so much more than if you're just looking at a computer screen.
Yeah, 100%. And how's your Spanish then?
Yeah. Uh, is it is it is improving. So start when I was here, like I was 6 months, I couldn't practice my Spanish with anyone because I wasn't seeing anyone.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
I started getting some lessons, virtual lessons, sort of middle of last year, and that went for a few months. And then this year I started getting them again. So it's definitely improving. It's one of those things that when I'm forced, like when I'm pressured to speak Spanish, all of this stuff comes out that I didn't know. I'm like, oh, I do know that word. I do know that expression. Whereas when I'm speaking to someone who speaks English, I chicken out. I get scared. But I try. I try.
No, it takes a while though. It's and
It
especially
does.
as you said,
It
you were in
does.
lockdown, so no much chance to
Yeah.
practice and that. And Eddie, why Colombia? Why did you decide to travel Colombia and spend some time in Colombia?
Yeah. Well, my one of my good friends, who's a filmmaker and illustrator as well, he's from Bogota, and we met years and years ago at a animation festival in Croatia, and we just clicked straight away, like we would just had this instant connection. And he was saying, "You've got to come to Colombia. You've got to come to Colombia." This was like 2006, and it took me like 11 years to kind of go, okay, now I've got to go there. And so I'd never been to Latin America at all. So I went to Argentina and then Colombia, and just loved it. Like I found it fascinating and surprises and so different to Australia in so many ways that I felt like, oh, this is like somewhere that I could definitely spend more time. And I didn't necessarily want to move there at that stage, but then a couple of years down the track, I was just sitting at home one night and I thought, I'm bored. Like I'm bored in my city. I'm bored in my country. I'm bored of my culture, and not because it's bad. It was just so familiar. And I've been there for 38 years, and I thought, okay, well, I'll move to Buenos Aires because that was always one of my favorite cities. I didn't think about necessarily moving to Colombia then, but I thought I'll visit. And then as time went on, my friend said, "Hey, my apartment is free for 6 months in 2020, so you can rent my apartment if you want in Bogota." And I thought, that's a great opportunity. Packed up all my stuff and packed up my apartment and bought a one-way ticket to Colombia. So that was how it all started.
Wow.
This part of it.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And then all your drawings, they've been very well received by Colombians, I feel, right? I don't know if only Colombians or in general Latin people. Like, who is your audience?
So my Colombian audience is about 60% of my audience is Colombian. So it really is. The majority of my audience is Colombian, and that's just the Colombians in Colombia. And then there's all the Colombians who are living in the USA, living in Europe, living in Australia. You know, and it's funny because the Colombian, there's a lot of Colombians who like my drawings. Before I started drawing about the Colombian foods and Colombian culture, I think particularly the younger women were really interested in the way that I was portraying women and sensuality and sexuality and these sort of things, which in Australia they weren't so interested in. You know, like my drawings about sex or romance, you know, things which are very Latin. That audience grew, and then when I started drawing about the Colombian things, foods and music, and that's when it really like exploded. And now I try and mix it all up. You know, I try and make like anything with flavor. I just want my drawings to have some sort of flavor, whether it's food, music, sex, love, travel, whatever it is. I just want it to be kind of delicious and like really like hook people in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think that the Colombian audience receives your drawing, so they like your drawing so much because of the culture itself? Maybe because we're more sensual, we're more like
Yes.
Yeah, in general.
Magic realism. I think I think there's a few different. I've thought about this a lot, and I've thought, okay, why Colombians? I mean, there's a mixture of things, like you're saying. There's the sensual culture, but also quite conservative, as you know. So it's not like the kind of culture like Australia where people are screaming and drunk and having sex, and it's not that sort of sensual, right? Quite innocent and wholesome. People go to church, people have their family things, but I think Colombians are naturally very interested in sensuality and sex, and even the ones who are very conservative and innocent, there's a fascination I think they've got with that side of things, and you can feel it in Colombian literature, in Colombian music, in Colombian art. I think it's just inherent in the culture. So I think that's a big part of it, and I also think the fact that Colombia is not like the tourist destination that some other parts of the world are, like Mexico or Brazil or these kind of places. So it hasn't got that huge amount of foreign kind of people coming through here. So I think there's an element of like they like being represented. You know, Colombians are like, oh, someone's actually talking about us in a positive way.
Yeah.
That's not about cocaine. It's not about Pablo Escobar. It's not about guerrillas. It's not about FARC. And so all my drawings were focusing on the beautiful things about Colombia, not the same sort of negative things that people have been trying to kind of, you know, get over. And I think that's people really appreciated that as well, which was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think people fall in love with the way you were showing Colombia, right? Because you had the A to Z and then all the different things about Colombia, the food, the cookies, like very specific, like you were showing something that was very Colombian. Not every tourist get to know Colombia in that way, right? And talk about all these little things and the cookies and the chocoramo, like, the details. Yes.
Exactly. I'm obsessed with details in general. Like I've always been obsessed with details. So naturally, if I'm living in a new country, I'm going to focus on the little things, you know, like the fascinating, like the candy and the specifics. I'm not so much just about tourist attractions or political things. I'm not so much into politics. So for me, it's like, oh, cool. I get to tap into and learn about all these little details and draw them, and it can be details in women. It can be details in food. It can be details in the geography or whatever it is. But it's always about the details. Yeah. And I think Colombians have really responded to that. Yeah, they've really gone, oh, you notice that, you know, we do this or we talk about that, or expressions that we use, and it's a very specific country. And I think it's also a country that feels like quirky, like it's not a boring country in any way.
It is not
in
boring.
No way. It's not
a bit
boring.
Dramatic as well. Like it's
dramatic.
Yeah.
it's always dramatic. There's always something happening, good or bad. You put on the news in Colombia, there's something bad happening and there's something amazing happening. And I think that maybe that's what makes it interesting to me, is that Australia is a beautiful country. There's beautiful people, but it feels like you know what you're going to get when you wake up in Australia. You know generally what your day is going to be like. In Colombia, it's like anything could happen today. Anything.
But that's so
Anything.
true. It's also, I think, the way people react. I love Australia so much. I love it so much. Obviously, I've been here now for
Yeah. Yeah.
8 years. This year it's gonna be 8 years since I
Oh,
left
wow.
Colombia. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So it was kind of very interesting to me to see
Yeah.
someone. Because I came here, and after 2 months, I was like, I love this country. I want to stay here,
Yeah.
right? And then I started
Yeah.
Colombia. Was like, this is so weird, though. Kind of changed the place.
Mm.
But there is a thing. Yeah,
Mm.
you're right about something though, because Australia, you're so tolerant, so peaceful, but you're also very
Relaxed.
calm and kind of flat. So I don't know if you know what I mean, but there is no like
Laid back.
reactions.
It's Australia. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true. It's true.
like a
It's true.
very
It's true. And I always felt a little bit out of place in Australia. My personality is very Australian. I'm a pretty relaxed, easygoing person. But on the flip side of that, I like a bit of narrative, a bit of drama. I like a bit of passion. I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very sort of cheeky, kind of sensual person. So in Australia, as you would know, most Australian men, they don't dance.
no,
They're not particularly romantic.
no.
They're practical. They're like very kind of reliable and solid and like a rock. You know what I mean? Whereas I was a bit more like, I guess, Latin in the way that I was like, I was into like dancing and singing and romance, and I was always had a crush on a different girl. There was always this something happening, and then I realized, oh, Colombia is the place for me. Whereas I think a lot of people from Colombia get so exhausted by things here, they go to Australia and they're like, ah.
That's exactly right. I think
Yeah,
that's exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was
Whereas
definitely
if you,
one of
yeah,
that was definitely one of the first things for me, right? Like I came here and was like, oh my god, there's no drama. There's no, I'm not even talking about kind of all the politics or security, all those
politics,
things in
no.
Colombia. No, I'm talking more about like family drama. I don't know, like friends drama. Everything was so flat and
I mean, that's the
calm.
thing. It does exist. It does exist, but I think because Australians, like, there's drama. I mean, there's been dramas in my family. There's been like, but it's all very, they hush hush. Don't talk about the issue in your family. There's a little bit of like, shh, don't talk about it. Whereas in Colombia, it's like, oh my god, this happened, and this, it's like, it's
It's
just,
and it's like you're so right. You're so right. It's even the way we express ourselves, right? Like the voice, the tone of voice
yeah,
we use, and the hands and everything is just like oh, drama, and I feel like that. Well,
yeah.
Australians are more. Everything is more
It is.
calm, flat. Yeah, but
It
sometimes
is.
frustrating though. Like after being here eight
Yeah.
years, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god, please react.
Yeah.
So like,
I know.
give me some drama, give me some
Yep. So
emotion.
imagine being there 38 years and you're craving something, you don't know what you're craving. Like I was craving something in my life, and not necessarily drama, but it was more like I needed some like electricity. I needed that
Mhm.
passion in my life. It's easy to think, oh well, if I go to another country, I'll be happier. And but I had this gut feeling that I would have, because I wasn't unhappy in Australia, but now looking back, I think I was just dissatisfied and I was a little bit frustrated with, things weren't happening in certain parts of my life that I wanted to happen. And then the minute I came here, things started to happen. So it's interesting how I think sometimes a geographical shift can shift things in your personality, in your own energy. And then it's like, wow, these people like love my drawings here. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's not just maybe it's an energy. Maybe they picked up my energy through that drawing, and then all these people pour into your life and start following you and go, oh, and that just wasn't happening in Australia because people knew me. They knew, yeah. It just was. I wasn't finding my audience there. So really, I think that this was the best decision I've made in my life for me as a person and creatively, which was a great realization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Sometimes you change to different places, your personality change. You kind of
Yeah, you did. You did.
100%,
Yeah.
and you kind of have the chance to find it yourself again and kind of rebuild it yourself the way you want to, because there's a lot of
Yeah,
things to
reinvent yourself. And I think that
100%.
absolutely. And I think you're allowed to. I think particularly, I mean, everyone's allowed to reinvent themselves whenever they want, but I think with artists, if you look through history and you look at singers, painters, there's always some shift where they go, you know what? I don't want that. I'm sick of that persona. I'm going to change my persona. I'm going to change my look. I'm going to change my thing. And I think artists need that. They can't just stay. They have to constantly shift and change. So this was definitely that for me, and I'm sure there'll be more changes as I'm here longer, and that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. And Colombia is also a very colorful place. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of inspiration, I guess, to get from. Like, it's a lot of
Yeah,
happening music, and it's fantastic. And Eddie, what's the
yeah.
biggest surprise like you got from Colombia? Like you were like, oh, I wasn't expecting this to be like that, or
Hmm. I think, yeah. Well, I definitely think it's the difference of the difference between departments. Like, I mean, there's 32 departments. Most Colombians have only been to 4 or 5 or 6. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like every Colombian's been to everywhere in Colombia. So what surprises me is the surprises. So, like the other day, a few weeks ago, I went to the tallest waterfall in Colombia. Is just 2 hours out of Bogota. No one knows about it. You probably don't even know
no,
it.
I'm
It's called
here thinking. I'm like, what? Where?
it's called La Correa. La Correa.
Okay.
And it's like 2 hours away, and I mean, it's like you're suddenly in the most beautiful, lush kind of rainforest kind of, and there's this 10, like it's this huge waterfall, and there's no one there. Like, there's 2 or 3 people there. There's a park, and and I was telling people, you've got to see this. They didn't even know it existed. So I think that, like, Colombia, what's happened is that obviously over the years there were parts that you couldn't travel to because of the guerrilla war and the drug wars. It's starting to, like, open up again, and I think that you couldn't do road trips, for example, in certain parts of the country, whereas now you can go on the road to a lot of places. So I think that through my Instagram, I'm able to even share with Colombians places that they didn't know existed, that I didn't know existed. My best friends from Bogota didn't know existed, and that's exciting. Like, there's something really beautiful about that. Going, wow, like, this is only 2 hours away, or um, this part of Colombia has this and this food and this music. So what I want to do is really travel around the country and share these beautiful, like, secrets and the details, and not just the typical places, like, because everyone goes to Cartagena and Santa Marta and the coffee region, but there's a lot of other places, like, the beautiful, beautiful details and indigenous people and music and everything.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
that's kind of what I have to do. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, wow. Yeah, that's good. It's absolutely true. Like
yeah.
you're definitely showing Colombians. I mean, I follow you since long time ago actually. I think even before you were in Colombia, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I saw you were in
Oh,
Bogota. I was like, oh, look at him. He's in Bogota now. And then you started sharing
oh,
all these
cool.
places and I'm like, I've never been there, eh? Like this looks just so
Yeah,
beautiful. We should go. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah. And
The best place I went to was my favorite place I've been to in Colombia naturally was in Caldas. So I went to Tolima, and we did a road trip through basically through the mountains, like, which was like incredible views. I mean, rugged waterfalls going across the road. There was no fences. I mean, it was just beautiful, beautiful, amazing part. We ended up in by accident, and hotel was like Hotel de Ruiz, and our aim was to stop there to have some lunch. And then when we were eating lunch, we looked out the back window, and there was this natural thermales, the natural hot springs, just steamy, and it was a freezing cold day. And I said to the driver, "We're staying here tonight." Like, I don't care what it costs. And it was only like $150 Australian for a room, so it was like cheap, really,
yeah,
for where
not
it
bad.
was.
Yeah.
And we chilled in the natural hot springs, and you got this mist and the mountains, and like Manizales is like in the distance. And I'm like, wow, this is just like the most beautiful and you can feed hummingbirds in the morning, and it was just exquisite, like an exquisite part of the country, and all natural beauty that was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite place I've been to. Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah. I
and that
mean,
was an accident.
that's it. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, the mountains in Colombia are amazing, and Australia, well, there's not many
yeah.
mountains, but so it's a completely different,
No,
yeah, landscape. But
it is.
yeah, stunning.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you ever? Okay, two things. Traveling around Colombia,
Mm.
did you ever feel um like unsafe traveling?
No, it's funny because, well, look, I mean, I haven't been everywhere, like I haven't been to maybe certain parts of the country that are considered more dangerous, but I mean, Bogota is probably considered one of the most dangerous cities in
Right now?
Colombia. But I mean, I just feel like it's about using your common sense, isn't it? Don't go walking by yourself at night, in particularly certain parts of the city, or anywhere. Um, and I haven't felt unsafe here. I think the only time I saw any kind of sort of sketchy, scary stuff was in Medellin. I was just sitting in my Airbnb one afternoon in this really nice part of the city, and I heard a gunshot like outside the Airbnb, and I thought, I hope that's a motorbike. But then I looked down, and there was a driver of a van, and he was like pushing on a motorcyclist who was like obviously trying to rob him or whatever, and that wrestling, the motorcyclist took off. So no one got killed or shot, but he definitely fired a gun. And then that was just before Christmas, and someone said to me, yeah, like it's like COVID. A lot of people is desperate before Christmas. They have no money, So a lot of it is just, isn't it? It's desperation from people who haven't got anything. That's probably the only time I've seen something that was like genuinely dangerous,
Yeah.
which you don't see every day in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, rarely. I mean, Australia is the
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
It's absolutely, it's crazy. Yes,
yeah.
because when I came here for the
But
first time,
it's funny. Yeah. Mm,
I was, well, I'm from Bogota, and then I
mm.
studied uh, in La Candelaria. You probably know La Candelaria in Bogota. The
Yeah, yeah,
universities are around there
yeah,
anyway, so
yeah.
I studied around there, and I will have class until like sometimes 9 p.m. or something. So then I will have to go and walk and catch a bus.
Yeah,
Um, so then it was all the time
yeah.
like on edge.
Transmillennial.
Yeah, yeah, like on edge. Just like, all right,
Yeah,
looking everywhere.
yeah,
And coming here, it was so strange just seeing everybody like using their phones and laptops in the bus or the train, not thinking about
yeah.
anything at all, like just everything out, and
No,
the iPhones, tablets, everything. At any time, like I remember, going out in Sydney and then probably going back home at 3 a.m. and it was just everybody would have the phone
yeah.
out. I
It's a
was
different
like,
sort of story.
oh my God, it's a completely different
But
level.
I, but I think that the thing that I've noticed that is more dangerous in Australia is when you go out at night here. It's like in Colombia, it's like you don't want to get robbed, right? You don't want to get your phone stolen. You don't want to get someone holding a knife to you. In Australia, you don't want a drunken pack of men or a drunken man who wants to fight or who wants to assault, because that happens. That happens a lot in Australia. There's a lot of assault. There's a lot of people punching someone in the head, which you don't necessarily get here. I haven't seen fights here. And someone said to me, yeah, the reason you don't see fights in Colombia is because for years, you didn't know who you were fighting against. Like, they could have been a narco, they could have been a gangster. So people just didn't fight. So I actually feel safer when I go to like places at night here than I did when I was in Australia, as a
Mm-hmm.
man, that is.
Yeah.
But there's always unsafe things in
And yeah,
different
and look,
countries.
it's
And
not perfect. I mean, obviously, it's not like it's
no,
extremely safe. In fact, in
no,
Australia was the first time when my apartment got broken into and my car is
yeah,
stolen.
it's really common.
Yes, yes,
It's really
exactly.
common.
I never experienced
Yeah.
anything like that in Bogota, like ever.
No, because you've got watchmen here. You've got watchmen in the apartments, and I also think that there's this thing in Colombia where there's always people around. You notice that? There's like every apartment's filled with people. There's always people in the street, particularly in the warmer parts of Colombia.
True.
Not so much Bogota, but like you go to the like warmer parts and there's people out in the street. So it's a different kind of thing. So I think that like, yeah, getting your house robbed is much more Australian.
It's
Whereas getting your phone stolen on the Transmillennial, that's like really Colombian.
yeah, exactly. Different levels. That's so true. That's
Yeah.
so true. But yeah, it was very funny. It was like, I can't believe it. It happened here. Like, a car is stealing, breaking into my house. They took cameras, microphones, anyway, everything. I was like,
yeah,
oh my God. But anyway, I mean,
and it's usually drug related. People in Australia, they want money for drugs, so that's why they're robbing your house. That's pretty much the sole reason. Is drugs.
Yes.
So,
pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. That's the other thing of Australia, right? Is a little bit of problems with ice, which I wasn't expecting to be a thing. Right.
Big problems, particularly in rural Australia, like places like Wollongong and like that, where the youths, their whole life is getting derailed by ice. So, and I haven't even heard of ice being a thing in Colombia.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not sure. Even like, it's not even something like cocaine. I mean, I heard more about cocaine and people using cocaine in Australia than here. And like, sure, you go to Cartagena and people offer you cocaine in the street, right? Because you're a foreigner and they're like, foreigners love cocaine. But I don't know any Colombians that do it. I don't know many Colombians. They can't afford it for starters. Like, like it's expensive. And I think that Colombians are probably weary and tired of that whole chapter of their history, that they don't want to participate in this thing that brought all this pain to their country.
Yeah, I think that's true. Fun, I have never, no one ever offered me cocaine when I was in Colombia. Maybe because of the because I was like, oh, she can't afford it. That's it. I don't know. But then I came here, I was like, oh my God. It's everywhere. Yeah.
Because Australians have money, they've got expendable income, and particularly if you're a professional young Australian and you're earning good money in Sydney or somewhere like that, you've got the money, you can buy some cocaine and do that sort of thing. But I've never been into recreational drugs or I don't even drink, so I was never in that world. But it's funny here, I've been offered it so many times in Cartagena. Like, I'm like, every day I was getting like, do you want some cocaine?
Wow.
So that was interesting. Yeah,
that's it. They know the audience. It's interesting though.
Yep.
It's interesting though, because after anyway, I saw that El Tiempo, you were in El Tiempo, and then in some other newspaper just about this drawing that you did. I think it was Girls from Medellín, maybe?
The polemic.
Was it that?
Yeah, the girls of Medellín.
Yeah.
I drew, when I first came to Colombia, the girls of Bogota, which you saw.
Yeah.
And I drew the girls of Cartagena, and they were both really popular. And then naturally, when I went to Medellín in December, I thought, well, all the girls are asking me, you're going to draw the girls of Medellín? And people said to me, Eddie, you're going to love Medellín because it's like the sexy city. You know what I mean? Like it's the city of reggaeton. It's the city of like sensuality and a city of, I guess, sex. So I thought I was and like that was what I was sort of geared towards by Colombians. So this is what Colombians are telling me. And then I went there and I'm like, okay, it didn't feel like a sexual city to me. I'm like, oh, it's just like a normal city. So I started going out to like shopping malls and parks and things like that. And I started looking at what was some of the common that the younger women had. And, like the girls in Medellin don't dress like the girls in Bogota. It's like completely different because of the weather, because of the culture. And they don't dress like they do in Cartagena. It's different again. So I was like, this is fascinating. So I did this drawing out of love, out of like to celebrate the paisas. And I put it on Instagram and, people really liking it. And then I put it on Twitter. It was like a Saturday afternoon and it exploded on Twitter. And I started getting like all this backlash from hardcore like feminist academics who were using me as like this colonial eye, and I was getting called I was getting called like sex tourist. I was getting called like gringo scum. All this xenophobia came at me from like I hadn't experienced in Colombia any xenophobia until that moment. Oh, go home, you Australian scumbag. All you want to do is snort cocaine and fuck women and all this sort of stuff. It was very like, whoa, I just drew a picture. Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of crazy. So for that 24 hours was really hard because I want people to like my drawings and I love Colombia. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Like I've offended the whole of Medellin. That's what it felt like. And anyway, then it hit the newspapers. It was in El Tiempo. It was in Caracol. It was all that sort of stuff. And that's when I got this huge wave of people from Medellin and other parts of Colombia who were like, oh, I love this guy's work. They started following me. They're like, yeah, that's what the girls look like. That's what I look like. That's what me and my friends look like. And they were like, don't worry about this. This is just typical Medellin. There's always a polemic because they're morongos. I learned about morongo, the expression, which, like for the non-Colombians out there, that means like double moral, like double standards.
Yeah.
So they'll go to church and then they'll dance to reggaeton, but then they'll like, they'll call you a slut if you wear a thing. So, so it was really fascinating. And then I started to enjoy the attention. And I was like, I thought to myself, oh, this is what being an artist is. It is creating things that create discussions. It's not just about painting pretty pictures. It's about creating discussions, dialogue, debates. And I did it by accident, but it was really cool because the girls were saying, hang on. One girl would say, we don't dress like that. And then another girl would say, what do you mean? What do you mean that? Like, what is that? What are you saying about that? Are you saying that if I wear ripped jeans, I'm a prostitute? Are you saying that if I wear a crop top, I'm a slut or something? Which was what they were saying. And it was suddenly like all these classism and all the things that I didn't experience in Australia, which is classism. And I was learning about all these fascinating things. So it was like, wow, what an amazing like crash course in like Colombian sexual politics and Medellin.
Yes, 100%. Wow, like you got like an intense.
I drew the same drawing, and
you got like an intensive course in like
it was like
Colombian culture and drama and classes and the whole experience.
Like everything. They created a drama out of something that was not really dramatic at all. It wasn't even a sexual drawing. Like I've done way more sexual drawings that I was like, people were dragging up those drawings and like, he's a pervert, he's a this, he's a that, he's a that. So it was really fascinating. But then someone was telling me, oh yeah, there's a controversy with Maluma, then there's a controversy with J Balvin, there's a controversy with everyone who comes into Medellin or from Medellin. And I'm like, oh, why does that not happen in Bogota? And I'm like, it's just something different. It's a cultural difference even within the country. And I there was people from other parts of Colombia saying, their prejudices were coming out against paisas. So they'd be like, typical paisas, they can criticize, but they can't take it. And I'm like, I didn't know about any of this. I'm going, what's this? And then, so you're getting all these different like debates that are going on around this drawing. And it was the most exposure I'd ever had in my life for any drawing, for any single drawing, was this one drawing. So now when I look at that drawing, I've got a kind of a soft spot in my heart, because I'm like, that put me on the map, that put me on the map in Colombia for many Colombians. And, and then I went to San Andres and I drew the girls of San Andres, which as a drawing, I actually thought was a very accurate representation. Zero controversy. Zero.
That's it.
It was just like, okay, this is really geographical. It's a country of several parts, isn't it? It's like the coast is different to the cities, and then your Medellin is different to Bogota. It's a fascinating thing. Yeah. So I'm really happy to be uncovering these things. And now if there's controversy around any of my drawings, I kind of embrace it. Back then I was a bit like, I just wanted to make people happy. Whereas now I'm like, if someone wants to hate my stuff, good. Like they hate my stuff because it's creating some thing inside of them, whereas like, and I think that's being an artist, is that there'll be people that love your work. There'll be people that hate your work, whether you're a singer, whether you're a painter, whether you're a filmmaker. And that's kind of like, cool, I'm ready for that. And I think because like I'm 39. Like I think if this had happened when I was 21, I think I would have been like freaked out, and I wouldn't have known how to handle it. But because I feel like a bit more like chill now, I'm like, that's cool. I can deal with this.
Yeah, that's it. And if you're creating controversies because
Yeah.
you're sharing something that exactly moves
Yeah.
people's feelings, and that's when you know you're doing something good, though, right? Like you're
Exactly.
actually
Yeah.
enriching people.
Totally. And Medellin has got a problem with sex tourism and those negative side of things and drugs. So I was lumped in this basket of like, oh, it's another white guy who's coming over here to have sex with the women and all of this. It was like, what?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really crazy.
I saw
Yeah.
that. Actually, it's a comment. Let me see if I can find it. I think I took a screenshot actually.
Yeah. That's some
Um,
great comments. I mean,
yeah, they're hilarious.
and most of them are in Spanish, so I couldn't understand. I was like, what the
What's happening?
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's so funny though. Someone comment, yeah. Why is everything he posts so sexual? Why does he think Latinas are all the time horny and sexual? Um, yeah, yeah. And I was just like, this is so funny because this isn't even a sexual post. And I was like, what? And I'm
No,
like,
it's not that. I mean, the thing, look, to be honest, like, I've always drawn sexual things. I mean, before I came to Colombia, I was drawing sexual things. So it's not like I was drawing, cute things and I came to Colombia and suddenly it became sexual. I think that's what some people want to think. They want to think, so you think we're all just horny or prostitutes? Or no, I was always interested in drawing about sex and sensuality. But what happened here was that my audience were begging for it. They're like, please draw more. Oh, I love that drawing. So when I did draw a sexual drawing, it was shared. I was getting comments and messages and follows. So naturally you think, oh, I'm going to keep exploring that because I like doing it. They like it.
mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen with every kind of drawing, but the sexual drawings, they're always a hit with the Colombians. Always a hit. And I think that it's not saying that Colombians have sex more than other people or this kind of thing, but I think that Colombian women in particular have got a fascination with sensuality, and I think that for so long probably they haven't been allowed to talk about it openly because they'll get labeled a slut or because of the kind of conservative thing here.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas a lot of them are like, oh, finally, like someone drew what my fantasy is, and it's like it gives them a license to participate in this community. So that's been really interesting. So it's not me going, this is what Colombian women are like. It's them telling me, can you draw this? Can you draw that? And so that's fascinating. And I think that you can't just say like every women are all the same in every part of the country, or it's just not the case. Like Australian women would respond differently to my drawings than Colombian women. So that's a cultural difference, even though they're both women. It's the way they see things is completely different.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
why did you start drawing like all this kind of sensual, yeah, in the sensual way, or your sensual drawings? That they're
Yeah.
beautiful though. I really like
Yeah.
them too. They're very nice to like.
Yeah.
For some reason, as you said, maybe we're a bit conservative, but when I see your drawings, I don't feel any kind of disrespect or anything like that. It's more like this is cool.
No.
I kind of
No.
like it. It's very
It's
unique
like,
as well. But how did it
yeah,
start?
yeah. I think I've always been like my whole life, ever since I was a little kid, I've always been really like girl crazy. I was always fascinated by girls. I was always had crushes on girls. I was quite a romantic child, if that makes any sense. Like I would like write love letters and do drawings for girls. And it's just me. Just born that way. My brother's not like that. It's not like everyone in Australia is like that. I was just born this way. So I think what happened was that I lost it for a while in my life. I wasn't drawing that sensual stuff because people around me would judge me. And then I started to draw more on Instagram. I drawing these respectful but like sexy things about women rather than pornographic or degrading or disrespectful or macho. So anyone never met me would never call me that. They'd never say Eddie's a sexist or macho or misogynistic, right? But because I draw about sex and women, they immediately go, oh, he's a man. he's a man, so he must be sexist because he's drawing about women enjoying sex. Like, I get attacked a lot by feminists who are saying, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. But then a whole lot of other women say, no, I love what you're doing. So that's when you know that it's just a matter of perspective and opinion, isn't it? It's no one's specifically right or wrong. Yeah. So
yeah, that's it.
and I think the sexual stuff, I really enjoy making people kind of have a reaction, like, to whatever I draw. So if people message me, oh my God, that drawing made me like horny or whatever it is, I'm like, oh, cool. I think women in particular are more attuned to those imaginative aspects of sexuality, whereas men will go and watch porn or that kind of thing. Whereas women they need more, like they need a story, or they need a fantasy, they need something going on. So that's why most of my sexual drawings are popular with women, not with men. Like, you would think, oh, okay, men will like sexual. They're not my biggest followers in the sexual stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. You would think it would be more men, but you're probably right. Maybe men would like something more like explicit, more like maybe more like porn, more real. Well, your drawings are a bit more
exactly.
Yeah, they're actually poetic, beautiful and poetic. Exactly. More art, more poetic, more beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that imagination. I mean, you read a Gabriel Garcia Marquez novel, and it's in there, isn't it? Like, when you read his novels, there's sensual sexuality. So that's why Colombians can associate it with that. Whereas all Australians know is porn, and like they go, oh, why are you drawing porn? So whenever I draw something sexual, Australians always say to me, why do you draw porn? Oh. Like, why do you draw porn? Whereas Colombians go, oh, I love this drawing. I love how you did this. So it's completely cultural. And, Australians proclaim to be very progressive and very open-minded, but that's on the outside. I actually think they're pretty conservative. I think Australians sexually are very conservative, even though they'll go out and have sex at drink and have sex and go crazy. But in the actual act of sex, they're pretty conservative. It's very much, it's not like here where girls are more less open about sex publicly, sure, they're dancing to, perreo and all this stuff like reggaeton, but I think in general, like, people seem a bit more quiet about it. But then behind closed doors, I think they're way more creative and way more wild than an Australian, for example.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think Latins in general are very sensual.
Yeah.
I never consider myself, for example, being a sensual person or a romantic person, and then I came here, I'm like, maybe I am. Maybe I'm.
Because in Colombia, in Colombia, the rollers considered the least sensual, right? They rollers can't dance. Apparently, rollers are very cold, and I'm like, that's not true.
The other thing is, I used to think that Colombians. I was like, yeah, Colombians drink a lot. They drink a lot. And then I came here. I was like, oh my God. No.
Every event revolves around drinking. Every sport event is about drinking. Every holiday is about drinking. Every music festival is about drinking. Every family gathering is about drinking. Whereas in Colombia, it's about music, family, food. Drinking is a part of it. Let's not be, naive. But I think that you can go to a Colombian party and not drink and still have a great time, because there's great music, there's great food, it's homemade, there's people kind of, I haven't been to lots of parties, but that's kind of the impression that I get. Whereas Australia, it's like, where's the alcohol? Why is there no alcohol here? Someone get alcohol to make this party happen.
100%. It's so true.
So that's a big difference.
And then I think the sensual part comes from it as well, right? Like, because in Colombia, it's more than alcohol. It's usually, as you said, music and dancing. So there is a lot of, like, it's very sensual. Yeah. And there is always
for all ages.
Yes.
For all ages.
For all ages.
Children dance amazingly here. Adults dance, old people dance, whereas in Australia, dancing is pretty much for young people, and it's for people at clubs and parties, and you've got to be drinking, and it's usually women.
100%,
so
exactly.
if you're a sober man drinking in Australia, sorry, if you're a sober man dancing in Australia, that's an extreme anomaly. I mean, it is unusual to see a man dance who's sober, and that was me. I was like, woo, dancing, you know. So that was always my life.
That's it. That's it. And then because dancing is so important, and then usually, yeah, there is a lot of playing and a lot of dance and all this before actual having sex, and it's very essential. So there's a lot of happening. You build the
Yeah.
chemistry, like it's the whole night, and
Yes.
it's finished there. Well, here I
Yes.
find like usually there's a lot of alcohol involved, so things happen quite fast. Kind of like you're drunk, that woo, yes. So like
But
there is no
alcohol doesn't. Alcohol. I don't think alcohol encourages sensuality. It kind of encourages a more primal kind of thing, doesn't it? It's like, I want
yes,
that. I'm gonna have it.
yes,
So Australian men, they get drunk and then they go out and they see a pretty woman. It's not like, I'm gonna woo her, I'm gonna romance her. It's like, I'm gonna walk up and I'm gonna be like the man. And, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what happens.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
It's
oh, the
totally
shame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally different. But I do think your drawings really touch like Colombians' heart, and and the females.
Yeah.
It's very nice. But also another thing is on your drawings, and a lot of girls were saying it was how you draw different like women in different all shapes, colors, everything, like all type of women, and people were really liking
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I do get criticism that I don't draw enough. I think sometimes people go, oh, this, and this, and you don't draw enough this. But I do draw women, like you're saying, of different body types and different colors. And you can never really win with the people who, always trying to catch you out. They're like, where's the woman of disability? Or where is the woman of, this, that, and the other? So, but I've drawn pregnant women. I've drawn, like different body types, like you're saying, different races. And because I do think women are inspiring. It doesn't matter what country they're from, but it just so happens that I find Colombian women particularly inspiring to me because of the interesting um, sides to them. It's like, it's not just because they're pretty, because like, hey, Colombian women are naturally very beautiful, but I think that there's this, they're very like, they've always got the earrings, they've always got their hair done, they've always got the makeup and these sort of things. They very much, they care, like Colombian women care about their appearance, right? Which is, some people would probably say that's like a prison, that they're trapped because of the society has made them that way. But I think a lot of them enjoy that. A lot of them enjoy, being the princess or being the beauty queen. So I think that there's that aspect, and I also think Colombian women are very funny, and I think they've got a very great sense of humor. You know what I mean? I haven't met too many Colombian women who don't enjoy laughing, and who don't enjoy laughing at themselves or laughing at their own,
Yeah, yeah.
country or whatever it is. So there's a beautiful humor here, where I think Australians are very funny too. Like, I think Australian people are generally very funny, but I also think that there's an element of people get so serious there. People are very like worried and complain. They complain about a lot of things, and they forget to have that sort of simple fun.
Mhm.
Whereas I think Colombians are very attuned, because so much shit has gone on in this country, that they can enjoy the candy, they can enjoy the cake, they can enjoy the song, and be like, oh, this is like simplicity. There's a simplicity here, which is really lovely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that's true.
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot,
Yeah.
and then so we learn
Yeah.
to enjoy all the
And
little
going through a
things.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey,
Yeah.
how do you go with the protest in it? Were you in
Exactly.
Bogota when all the protests were going on?
Yeah. So I was actually I was in Ibagué. I was in Ibagué for a project there, and then I heard that the protests were starting, and I couldn't get back into Bogota because of the roads were all blocked and everything. So that was interesting, because I'd never had that happen in my life.
Yeah.
And then when I was back in Bogota, I was living in Telsaquillo,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not too far from downtown, where there was a lot of protests happening, and I thought, oh, I'm probably not going to see any protests here. And one day I'm sitting there and I hear this like drum beating and chanting in the distance, and it gets closer and closer and closer until it's like, hang on, that's like right next to my house.
Yeah.
So I go up onto my terrace, and I looked down and like not even like a main street. It was like it's almost like a Segway street. And there was this huge amount of people with flags and drums and chanting, and it was incredible to hear and see. Never heard that style of thing in Australia. So it's quite powerful and quite moving, and seeing how much people really cared, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But because I didn't get involved politically on my Instagram, I did get a lot of criticism, you know, from people who were saying, you know, why are you not showing SOS Colombia? Why are you not showing what they're doing to us? And I've got my reasons, and one reason was my stuff isn't generally political, so I don't get involved too much in that way. I was in the process of getting a visa, so I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to give them any chance to deny my visa. And the third was I felt like um, I'm not Colombian, so I didn't feel like it was my place yet. Maybe in some years, you know, but I didn't feel like I could comment politically, and I didn't want to share more images of violence or images of like disruption where people who are in other countries go, oh, Colombian's dangerous. Colombia is, oh, now they're just crazy Colombians. I don't like that. I don't like that when people kind of constantly share the massacres and constantly share, which, you know, it's hard because you want to share those things because you want the world to know, hey, this is what's happening in Colombia. But at the same time, it's like we can't just keep perpetuating this idea that Colombia is like an unstable, dangerous, you know, like clusterfuck, which it's not, you know, and it's not completely. There is parts of it that absolutely are bad, right? I mean, we can't
Yeah.
deny that, but it's a really multifaceted country.
It is, yes, it is. And then yeah, you were right. You haven't been there long enough
No,
to actually understand, right? Because I understand a lot of people want you
yeah,
to support some to jump into something. That's another thing with Colombians because we're so passionate. We jump into things quite fast, right? Like if it touch
transparent.
our
Yeah, yeah,
feelings, we're there. And then sometimes we don't stop to kind of like, but wait a second, what is happening? We just jump and
yeah,
we get moving for passions and feelings, and it's just um, but yeah, for you being a
yeah.
foreign, you just like no, really knowing much about the culture. Like you need time to fully
No,
understand the history.
I'm learning. You know, I'm
Yeah.
learning about it. So talking to my friends here, they've talked to me about politics because they're way more critic of Colombia because I love the experience that I've had here. But when you've been living here for 40 years or 50 years, you can be a critic. You can say, hey, this is completely wrong, what is happening. And so my friends are much more critical about Colombia because they're Colombian.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to be. They're allowed to be that. I don't want to become that foreign person who's critical, because you do hear that, you know, they come here and then it's like, oh, this is what's wrong with Colombia, blah, blah, blah. I'd rather focus on the things that I love about it personally, but, you know, everyone's
Yeah.
got their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And Eddie, what are you missing from Australia? Are you missing anything for Australia?
um, my family, I
Yeah.
miss them, of
Yeah.
course. But, you know, I think missing your family when you're 39 is a bit different to when you're like 9 years old. You know, it's not like me. It's not like you're crying yourself to sleep every night. But you know, I'd love to just hang out with my family again. And
Yeah.
obviously, at the moment, Australia is not really open. You know, so I don't really want to go back yet. So my family I'm missing. I think that's the main thing. Like, I think a lot of my friends, my closest friends, were not necessarily in my own city or even in my own country. So, like, one of my best friends was here, one of them was in Sweden, another one was in the USA. So, I think that my family, yeah, is definitely something I miss. Um, but other than that, I think, you know, most things I've found here have brought me happiness. You know, I think that Vietnamese food I miss. I really miss Vietnamese
Yes.
food, which
Yeah.
is just like the best.
There's not Vietnamese food in
There's
Colombia.
a
Eh?
couple. It was like wok.
Oh
Wok
yeah,
is pretty
wok.
good. Did you ever
Yeah.
go there?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, wok
Wok.
is
Wok's
good.
good. Yeah. True.
Wok is a good one, and there is like Medellín. There was a place that had some good Vietnamese, so it does exist. It's just not
Everywhere.
as common as in rural Australia. So that's one thing I miss. But I mean, as far as like the fruits in Colombia, you've got every fruit you could possibly want here. I mean, it's not even a problem. Um,
What have you
the
tried?
the
Have
the
you tried any
bread.
food? Have you ever tried a food that you were like, no, that's gross?
Yes, I didn't like masato
Yeah, right.
at all.
Yeah, no.
I didn't like that fermented thing, and then I had another thing called forcha. Have you had forcha? It's in
No.
Tolima. It's like a frothy. It's like a frothy kind of white thing that's got some strawberry like sauce, like some berry sauce, but it's like it tastes like beer. It's like fermented. I don't like anything fermented, basically.
Yeah, no.
So I
No.
won't. I won't like chicha. Like everyone's like, you got to try chicha.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
I know I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna like that thing yet. But I also tried. I There's a few things that I've tried, but I think in general, I've loved everything I've had. I mean, like the fruit's amazing. The like the lechona
Nice.
is just a beautiful, like delicious thing.
Love it.
Tamal,
Yeah.
and the panaderia. I love the panaderias. Like the panaderias in Colombia, and there's something special about them. And we've got bakeries in Australia, and they make some good stuff. But here, it feels like everything you eat tastes like it was cooked by your grandmother. Like
Yes.
there's nothing flavor, there's nothing flavorless. Everything feels like, oh, this tastes great, and that can be just a simple, boring looking thing that's got so much flavor, or that kind of thing. So I think that Australians don't know anything about Colombian food.
Oh
I
no,
mean, let's
zero, nothing.
nothing,
In fact, the Australians
nothing
know very little about Colombia in general. Like
in
from
general.
my
In general,
experience, yeah, Australians don't really know where Colombia is. Like it's just like uh,
I know,
some people kind
and they
of
wouldn't
know.
know.
Some people kind of
Yeah, they
know
wouldn't
that's in
know all
Latin
about the.
America, maybe.
Yes,
But from some other,
maybe
it could
yes.
be like Asia,
Africa.
yeah, anywhere.
Yeah,
And then I
yeah,
said Colombia, and sure, most people will say something like, "Yeah, Pablo Escobar," but that's pretty
yeah.
much it. There's no much.
That's it.
Uh,
It's there. But
yeah.
I love reggaeton. Like I'm a total reggaetonero. Like I love it. But like you got to remember this. I didn't know what reggaeton was until 2017. So
Yeah.
like
Okay.
so most Australians don't know reggaeton.
Mhm.
They might hear like gasolina or like despacito, and then they're like, okay, that's Latin, but they
Yeah.
don't know this reggaeton thing. But like J Balvin and Maluma and Bad Bunny and all these people I've discovered over here, like become my soundtrack. Is because it's sexy and it inspires me with the drawings, and like it's fun. It's a fun music,
I'm glad you
even if
like
people criticize it.
reggaeton. I mean, reggaeton is quite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
love
like
it.
you like reggaeton. Cause my
Yeah,
boyfriend is always like, yeah, but the lyrics, they're terrible. I'm like, don't think too
doesn't worry
much.
about the lyrics.
Yeah, I'm
But
like,
that's the thing.
feel it.
But that's that conservative thing. Like, I mean, you listen to a lot of rock music. There's really,
Yes.
like, I think it's a class. There is an element of classism to it, isn't there? Where people go, oh, that street music. The poor people, like it's a bit not racist, but there's an element of something going on where like, I notice a lot of people who don't like reggaeton are like wealthy, white, Colombians, and it's like, oh, that crass music, whereas for me, it's like it is sexy and
It
it
is
is,
sexy.
it's
It's
very
great to
sexy and
dance.
it's great to dance to. I don't know what they're saying half the time, right? So I have to, like I still have to look up the lyrics to know what they're saying. But then when I do look up the lyrics, I'm like, that's not that bad. Like that's like. So I think that because of my drawings are sexual, I think that's why I really love reggaeton, because it's not necessarily all about sex, but there is an inherent sexuality to it, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. And um, so I think, yeah, it's like this. It's like a new world I've discovered, new soundtrack, new flavors. It's like my whole mind just got opened up by Colombia, and I've traveled like a lot of countries. Like I've probably been to like 32 countries or something like that around the world. So it's not like I'd never traveled out of Australia. I'd been to Europe, I'd been to Asia, I'd been to Africa and stuff. But I think that something happened in Colombia where it was like immediately there's something about this place that's speaking to me. And I don't know what that is. And I know it's a bit broken. I know it's not perfect. But maybe that's part of it. Like it's not like everything's not clean. I mean, it's pretty clean, but it's not like sterile. It's definitely not sterile. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, Colombia is beautiful in with all its imperfections and everything.
Yeah.
People so passionate. I
What do you
miss
miss?
that a
What do you miss
lot.
about Colombia?
Yeah, I
Right.
do
So
miss
you
the
miss that.
passion. Yeah, but
Yeah.
dancing is a
Yeah.
big one, and because we're being
Dancing,
in this COVID thing,
lockdown.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's
And
no.
what food do you miss? What Colombian food or drinks do you miss?
That's a thing. That's an interesting one. Um,
Because
I
you can't
mean,
get a lot of those things in Australia. You can't get granadilla in Australia,
oh,
for
absolutely
example.
no, no fruit. You know what I miss a lot? Like
Yeah.
juices, like fruit juice.
Oh, yeah.
Cause in so I love that. Like ¿cómo se?
You're
Forgot
amazing.
now how you say more. Blackberry, mora.
Mora.
Yeah, yeah, mora.
Jugo de mora.
Jugo de
Oh,
mora, which
yum.
I love, and
Oh,
but then you can find it here. Like I mean, it's not like when I go out or something for lunch,
no.
brunch, whatever, and then I'm like, oh, jugo. No, everything here is not natural. It's hard to find something natural. Limonada, yeah, I love limonada.
You can't get in Australia. You can't find
So
limonada in Australia.
no,
Yeah, it's
never. Like the small
Australians are
place.
more into like Australia. Yeah, Australians drink a lot of juice, but they like drink like Boost juice,
Yes,
all
but
that kind of
juice.
stuff,
Exactly. So you
and like
have to
orange
go to a
juice
special place to get juice. It's not like in Colombia you go to any restaurant and they were
anywhere.
like, yeah, what juice do you
Yeah,
want? Yeah, no, you have to go to
yeah,
special place for juice.
yes.
Yeah, and then a lot of times it comes already like in a package. Like whilst in Colombia,
Package.
literally the fruit, and they just.
Oh, I mean, it's like passion fruit in Australia, but we don't have the big yellow maracujá. So when I first tasted that juice, I'm like, whoa, like talk about like zingy, you know what I mean? Like your flavor, your taste buds are just dancing when you have maracuja.
Yeah.
And I also love the chocolate, like the caliente. It's because like in Australia, when you get a hot chocolate, it's like usually it's powder. It's from powder, and it's got milk in it in the powder. There's milk powder. There's cocoa, and it's very sweet, and it's fine. Like it tastes okay, it tastes good. But here it's like the pasteles,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pasteles, and you can make it at home with the thing, the thing, and then you
¿Cómo
dip
se?
your tostada, caladitos.
Molinillo, right? Molinillo, the thing.
Yeah, that's it. And so it melts down, and then you like, because I don't drink milk, so sometimes I put a bit of almond milk with it, but sometimes I just have it with water.
Where?
And then you've got your tostadas, your caladitos, and you're dipping that in. And
Nice.
it's just like this simple comforts of Colombia, but there's just a beauty in their simplicity, I think.
So that's the thing. That's also so true. Like Colombian food it's simple. Like it's not as complex as Indian food, for example, or Thai food.
Or Asian.
Yeah, in general, they have so much. A lot of ingredients.
It's very much meat, rice. Yeah, it's always meat, rice, potatoes, yuca, plátano. Like that's kind of it, isn't it? I mean, it's not like
kind of it.
and you get various things like soups. Like the soups are different, obviously. And then the seafoods on the coast and that. But inland, like it's very much potato, rice, meat, and like I really enjoy all those things. So
but yes, it's quite
maybe
simple.
that's why it never took. Maybe that's why, yeah.
And then as you said, like it's just having a coffee with a tostada, with a calado, or like chocolate with a calado, right? But here, I love that because I grew up in Colombia. That's my thing. It's like kind of a bit of chocolate with bread and coffee with a tostada, and that's the kind of what I have. And I get like, but it is so simple. Like, this is so plain.
In Australia,
it's usually what they discovered. Like,
Australia,
it's plain.
you have to have like a coffee, or if you have a coffee in Australia, you're having a piece of cake, right? You're having with like a particular slice of cake or a cookie or a croissant or something. There's always another level. Whereas the simplicity here of like, oh, okay, I had a big lunch. What am I going to have for dinner? I'm just going to have a chocolate and some tostadas.
Yes,
for dinner.
That's so true. Literally
Like,
true. So when my boyfriend went to Colombia for the first time, right, to stay with me and my family,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he went to Colombia for 3 months, and he lived with me and my
Yeah.
family for 3 months. Anyway, and then he was like, "Man, you never have dinner, eh?" And he was just starving all the time. I was like, I couldn't see like his face when my mom was like, "What about for dinner? We have like a cafecito and a arepa with a bit of cheese." And
That's
he,
it.
Pat was like, "Is that dinner?" I was like,
Is that it? Is that it? Yeah. Well,
"Yeah."
for me, it works really well because I'm not like I've noticed that Colombians eat big breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Like generally they eat a big breakfast and then a big lunch. You
Yep.
know, like lunch is like the big meal, and
Yeah.
then like you say, dinner might be literally some cake and some coffee or some chocolate and some bread and cheese or whatever it is, and that's it. Whereas in Australia, it's like during the weekdays, breakfast isn't that big. You know, like it's medium. Lunch, it's like okay, like but dinner is the big meal. You know, people sit down to a big dinner in Australia, which is just the European, the British. It's very British. You know?
Very British. Yeah.
So, and it doesn't make any sense. Like because you absolutely should be eating the big meal for lunch, but I'm still getting used to it. I still it's taken me a bit of time to get used to the thing there because like in the morning I don't want a huge meal. Like I don't want all this cooked food and arepa and sausages and I just want like a bowl of cereal and some fruit. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
but here it's like it's a big thing, you know. Right. So I'm becoming more Colombian slowly, but some things I'm still attached to like
Yeah,
Australian things, you know.
yeah, 100%. Same here. Like I still have my lunch is my
Yeah.
biggest meal. And then I
Yeah.
struggle with dinners. When I go, with
So
friends.
what do you have for breakfast? What do you have for breakfast in Australia?
Well, porridge. Like usually have some oats. With some
Like
fruit, maybe.
Australian, more Australian.
Yeah,
Yes,
more
yes.
Australian. Yes, more Australian. Oats
Yeah,
and
yeah,
fruit and a bit of that. Coffee, 100% food.
yeah,
I didn't used to
yeah.
drink coffee in Colombia in the way I drink coffee here. Like
No,
the coffee culture in Australia is crazy. Like everybody here drinks coffee,
that's
and
mental.
it's
Yeah,
mental. It's delicious though. But anyway,
all
yeah,
the time,
coffee all the time.
all the
Yeah,
time.
it's mental. Yeah.
Get
And
used to it.
did you spend
Yeah.
Christmas in Colombia?
I did, and it was the most like un-Christmassy kind of anti-climactic Christmas ever because you know there was lockdowns, it was like
Mm,
curfews, there was no parties,
yeah.
um, no one invited me anywhere. Like I thought, oh, I'm in Colombia, someone's going to invite me to their family Christmas. No one, like no one invited me, and I thought, oh, that's not something that Colombians do. It's like family things are family things. So unless you're in the family, you're not getting invited to a family Christmas. Whereas in Australia, oh yeah, invite your friend along. It was, you know, like I think that's what I was expecting, and maybe it could be the pandemic that's made people really scared
I
to
think
you
so
know have those sort
too.
of things and
Yeah, I think probably the
um,
pandemic was a big factor there, and people kind of trying to keep it small in 2020 because it
yeah,
was,
they are,
yeah, so try to keep it kind
yeah.
of small and many
So
people. Yeah.
I didn't really do anything. I mean, I saw the lights in Medellin, the Christmas lights, which were beautiful. Bogota, I just chilled out with my friend, and he had some buñuelo and natilla. I couldn't have any of those because I'm lactose intolerant, so I couldn't eat those. But you know, it was I got to hang out with my friend and that. But yeah, I think the things I'm missing that I still need to experience in Colombia is dancing properly at a place where
Mm-hmm.
you can dance, you know,
Yeah.
club or a party. And I'm missing that like an asado, you know, like a barbecue, having like, people going to a finca, all of these experiences I haven't had because of the pandemic and then no one's invited me to these things.
Yeah, you've got a different
Mm,
experience of Colombia. That's so funny. Your experience was very unique.
yeah,
Very unique. Like
yeah,
lockdown, but
yeah.
also intense, like a very intensive course on Colombian
Protest.
culture and politics and classes and all these things. And
Yeah,
so very unique experience, which is
it
great.
is.
So what's next for you, Eddie? Are you planning to stay in Colombia a bit longer? What are your plans?
Yeah. I got my visa for. I just got my visa approved for a year, so I
Okay.
can stay here till July next year on that. And then in the meantime, I'm going to get the paperwork together that I can stay here longer. So I'm definitely planning on this
Excellent.
being my home, and I'm sure that projects, creative projects, travel, relationships, all of these things that take time, really to establish. So like you have to be living in a country at least a couple of years to start to kind of feel, like it's your place,
Yeah,
like you're not
100%.
just a tourist,
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but I think that I think my future that I can see my future is definitely here, and I can see myself probably having a relationship with like Colombian women, or having children one day here, that kind of thing. Like I definitely feels like it's my place, like
Ah. So I
yeah,
have to ask you about it because if I don't ask,
yeah.
my audience won't forgive me. But here we go. So are you dating someone, a Colombian?
I oh gosh, this would get me into trouble. No, I'm not
Ah.
in a I'm not in a boyfriend girlfriend sort of relationship. I've had like had some close times where it was like, okay, this could be a girlfriend, but then it was something happened, or it was more casual or whatever. But I've definitely I haven't been lonely. Like I've definitely had dates and different romantic and physical experiences, which have been it's another kind of fun, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
just being in relationships fun, but also kind of being free and being being your most liberated self, I guess, can be fun also. So I'm really enjoying that freedom. But I'm a romantic, so I'm sure that I'll fall in love again at some stage, and and be swept into the heart of some Colombian girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not hard, but I think, and also with social media, it's interesting because probably if I wasn't on social media, I wasn't sort of like, if I didn't have any profile here, I wouldn't have met as many people or girls as I have. So I've met a lot of girls. I've chatted to a lot of girls on Instagram. So suddenly, when you get that kind of scope, you start to go, right. Well, I don't just want to kind of jump at the first
Yeah.
relationship that comes along, or so you really kind of, and I think at my age you start to know what you want, what you don't want, and what maybe is like some fun, and then what is like more like relationship worthy and all of that. So um maybe talk to me in a year, and I might
Yeah,
be
you'll have some
in a
updates.
different spot,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I might have
exactly.
some updates. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, definitely a lot of the stuff that I've experienced with love and affection or sex or whatever, it definitely put it into my drawing. So there's elements of that that is based on reality. There's some of it that's completely fictitious. So I think that's what people like to go, did that happen, or is that made up? And I'm like, oh, only I know, and only the girl knows,
Yeah,
So
that's
so
it.
um, yes, it's fun. It's good fun. And someone said to me, like recently, someone said you should do an OnlyFans because, on Instagram you can only draw a degree of sexuality. You can't
Mhm,
push it
mhm.
to really, I get explicit levels. And I've had certain drawings banned and removed. Someone said you should do an OnlyFans, and I asked my audience, would you be interested in an OnlyFans that was like $5 a month, and you get the really hot stuff. You get the really hot drawings with the writing and the poetry, and these girls are like, yes, 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 give us OnlyFans, give us OnlyFans. So I'm going to test it out. I'm going to test out the OnlyFans and see how it goes. And if I get enough people hooked on the erotic drawings, I'll keep doing that. And if it doesn't work out, there's nothing lost. So
Absolutely, absolutely,
it could be
great.
interesting to see.
Yeah, you need to try
Yeah,
it for sure, for
but yeah, I'm
sure.
good. Exactly, exactly.
Amazing. Eddie, I'm
Yeah.
conscious of your time too. It's been great talking to you though. Awesome. Love it. I'm so happy you're enjoying Colombia. I'm so
It's been
happy that
fun.
you had the chance to
Yeah.
to get to know Colombia in such a unique way. Like your experience is very unique, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
and I love your drawings.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, and I'll be sure to share it on Instagram so everyone knows about your Instagram and they follow you and
Yeah,
keep
that's
up with.
great.
So
I'm
you
not.
don't just talk to. Is your podcast theme just Colombian things, or is it sort of a mixture?
Oh, it's a mixture. It's a bit of everything. And to be honest, I don't
Oh,
move that much in social media, which I'm trying to do. I'm like, all right, I
yeah,
really need to get in the game here because this is it.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I talk to a lot of people in Spanish and English. So I don't know, from politics to nutrition, neuroscience, I don't know, a bit of
Oh,
everything. So yeah, but
bit of everything.
yeah, a bit of everything. But I'm
Nice.
sure, I'm certain, B Prime audience are gonna love this chat with you because I know they like your drawings. I see
Awesome.
it everywhere. Like you can see people sharing your drawings, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's great. Well,
That's
I'm so
cool.
happy for you. I'm
That's cool.
happy you're having a great experience in Colombia and you're discovering Colombia in such a deep way. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, and any time.
Yeah, all right. Let's keep in touch then. Have a good afternoon.
Yeah. Ciao.